Welcome to a very special edition of Escape from Mount Backlog. Today I'll be giving you my first impressions of Wolfenstein II, the new Colossus. Partly because I only got my copy on Tuesday because I had to go and get the collector's edition and an online retailer took some time in delivering. But also I'm trying to savor the game. It's bloody fantastic. This is exactly what I wanted from a sequel to the New Order. Bigger levels, bigger guns, better perks. It's a damn near perfect sequel mechanically, aesthetically, audibly, and narratively. So far at least. This game stands a full head and shoulders above its predecessor, the New Order. The new Colossus is also the first game in the series to be a numbered sequel, and to my knowledge the only direct sequel. So, time for an EFMB history lesson. Patent pending. The first game to bear the Wolfenstein name was, appropriately, Castle Wolfenstein in 1981. A top-down castle escape game with stealth elements, including distraction and disguises. It focused more on puzzle elements than combat, and it was released for the Apple II. In 1984, Beyond Castle Wolfenstein was released, improving on the first game and adding new features. Some have considered the depth of the gameplay experience to have been well ahead of its time, and was much deeper than any console experience at the time. These games also inspired some intrepid developers to create their own games, notably a little crew of misfits in Mesquite, Texas. id Software. Roll the doomsday clock ahead to 1992 and id released the granddaddy of the modern FPS, Wolfenstein 3D. Initially, the team wanted to recreate the original Castle Wolfenstein using their new raycasting pseudo 3D engine. Originally, it wasn't going to be called Wolfenstein, but they found out that the rights to the name were available and scooped them up. The game, of course, had limitations. Notably, stealth and disguises were excised from the design, which in turn sped up gameplay and in turn effectively birthed the FPS as we know it today. Yes, its next game, Doom, would perfect the formula, but that wouldn't have happened without Wolfenstein 3D. Spear of Destiny, a sort of expansion, was also released in the Wolfenstein timeline a couple of months after Wolfenstein 3D. It added more levels, more bosses, and of course, more overt occult elements. It was basically just more Wolfenstein, and that was great. Then, 9 years pass without any more Wolfenstein games, and in 2001, Return to Castle Wolfenstein was released. This time developed by Grey Matter Studios, who later got absorbed into Treyarch, one of the three companies helming Call of Duty, and Splash Damage. If that name sounds familiar, it should, because they brought something to Wolfenstein that hadn't been there before. Multiplayer. Another 8 years of silence, unless you count Wolfenstein Enemy Territory and Wolfenstein RPG. Wolfenstein RPG was released on a mobile phone of all things. The year 2009, Wolfenstein attempted to storm the market again, this time developed by Raven Software, who had a long and fruitful symbiotic relationship with id, but that's for another video. This release was also the black horse of the Wolfenstein timeline. Not as well received, but still a damn good FPS, as Raven were prone to make. Wolfenstein 09 is basically impossible to find anywhere because of licensing issues. It held the IP rights and Activision the publishing rights of the game, but that's something a lawyer should tell you about. Enter Bethesda and their parent company, ZeniMax. They acquired id in 2009, gaining the Wolfenstein IP in the process, and in 2010, they also acquired a startup studio in Sweden, comprised of ex-Starbreeze employees, the people that made The Darkness and Chronicles of Riddick: Escape from Butcher Bay, Machine Games. Machine Games were, and are, big fans of id's work. They even visited the id offices in Texas, and when they discovered that no one was working on Wolfenstein games, they pitched an idea to Bethesda, and they were given the green light. This gave us 2014's Wolfenstein, the New Order. Which for the sake of brevity was a triumphant return and reimagining of Wolfenstein as a property, taking it into a more narrative-driven direction, but still delivering gut-punchingly visceral combat and a seriously bonkers plot. There's moon Nazis. What more can I say? In 2015, Machine Games released Wolfenstein: The Old Blood, a direct prequel to the New Order, and also serving as sort of a reimagining of Wolfenstein 3D, complete with a literal castle Wolfenstein to escape. Oh, and a Nazi zombie army. Which brings us to the year of our Lord 2017. And my god, indiscriminately butchering f***ing Nazis has never felt this good. Where do I even begin? Honestly, I don't even know. As I said in the beginning, this sequel is perfect. I should mention that this next part is going completely off script, because these are my unfiltered feelings. This is the perfect sequel. It's everything I wanted and more. Like I said in the beginning, narratively, I've only played about the first 2 hours of the game, but the opening, and remaining completely spoiler free here, is some of the most horrifying scenes I've seen in a video game. Not gory, not horror movie horrifying, just real life horrifying. And it's not out of place either. It helps inform BJ's character, but saying any more would spoil it. It's something you really just have to experience for yourself. The main antagonist of the story, Frau Engel, who you may remember from the first game, The New Order, is a completely deranged, single-minded, psychopathic villain. Possibly the most unhinged antagonist since Far Cry 3's Vaas in 2012. I mean, she's worse than the Joker in any incarnation. That's pretty unhinged. She's the type of villain you absolutely love to hate. And she's brought to life wonderfully by the actress, and I'm going to butcher this, Nina Franozek. I just can't get over Frau Engel. None of the characters in this game feel phoned in. There are phenomenal performances across the board. Every single character is realized wonderfully. Brian Bloom shines again as William Blazkowicz, bringing a gruff, contemplative character to life. Anya is brought to life beautifully. Set Roth, I think, is my new favorite character. Just the way he prattles things off and, throws Yiddish into his daily speech. It's great. Now, as I've said, I haven't played much of the story, but I've got very high hopes. It's been well praised by critics. But what I can definitely comment on is the gunplay. The gunplay is still as tight, if not more so, than the New Order. And the ability to be able to dual wield 2 different weapons. Why haven't shooters done this yet? It seems like such a basic idea. Have 2 options ready to go without having to switch weapons. Yes, I know in some types of games that might break immersion, but seriously, it's just so freaking cool. The game is also frightfully beautiful. I cranked it up to max just to see what it looks like, even though my rig cannot handle it. Side note, the performance could use a couple of more patches to get where I would feel comfortable. There are a few drops below 60 on my rig, which seem to be unexplainable. I have heard other people have had similar issues, but I'm sure Machine Games will patch. As I was saying, the game is absolutely beautiful to look at. The world is created with such amazing dynamic shadows and lighting and particle effects and everything. It's a visual feast. Side note on the particle effects. Wait till you see your first melted Nazi. And it's so richly saturated. This isn't a grey Call of Duty corridor shooter. You can see yellows popping out of the screen. You can see and read everything perfectly. The sound design is also, again, just on point. The guns all feel meaty and powerful. Every shot thunders from the barrel with great effect. To say nothing of Mick Gordon's soundtrack, which, again, Mick Gordon has brought his A game to yet another property. He did it for the New Order. He slayed Doom's soundtrack. He created a eerie soundscape for Prey earlier this year. And with the new Colossus, he created a synth-infused 1960s rebellion rock sounding soundtrack. It's great. What else can I possibly say? It's a great game. It is. It's just great. If you haven't picked it up yet, I sincerely hope you do. Show Machine Games your support. Vote with your wallet on this one. As a bonus, there's absolutely no microtransactions, no loot boxes, none of that shit that's been creeping into AAA games this year. It's just a straightforward, single-player, story-driven experience. The type of thing I personally love. You know, I'm sitting here just recording my thoughts, and the only thing I want to be doing is playing more Wolfenstein. So, I think I'm gonna leave you and go do that. And if my incoherent ramblings haven't convinced you that you should play this game, hopefully the gameplay footage has. So I guess that'll wrap this episode up. Please remember to like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. If you are subscribed, hit that notification bell icon. If you're new here, welcome. Check out some of my older videos. If you're old, go rewatch some of my older videos. You may have missed one. And tune in next week when we look at something a little bit different. Bye.